film.
So let's talk about, you shot the movie, you made the movie. Let's talk about distribution. What was your plan for distribution? Did you have a plan? Did it go according to plan?
Yeah. Let's see. So we shot. There was the whole process. It took a long time to finish the film, as you know, because we shot on 35 millimeter, and our great instructor from Chapman Film School, Harry Cheney, was the sound designer on the film. He was the sound editor, and Harry is well respected as too, and he had connections in Hollywood, so we were able to do the Foley at Warner Brothers. But it had to be done when they were available, right? David Fine and David Job, the two Foley artists. That was amazing being part of that, or just being there. They had just worked with Oliver Stone and all these other people, and they were telling story like, I don't know, Michael Mann, and the list goes on of the people they had worked with. But so we shot on film, then I edited on Final Cut Pro, early version of Final Cut, and so we did this early telecine to DV cam, and then I digitized the DV cam, I edited it on Final Cut, and I didn't realize, I thought on that score, I thought the computer kept track of the edit decision list, but at that time, with the old version of Final Cut, there was a separate program where you're supposed to enter in the flex files and time code.
Cool. So it was a practice edit then.
Okay. Yeah. So in other words, I didn't do that, and so I ended up needing that. I hired the negative cutter that I had worked for to cut my film.
This is after the Foley?
This is This is before the Foley.
Yeah. So you had a true picture lock for the Foley.
Yes.
Thank goodness.
Yeah. But I didn't have the EDL. So I had to go through and look at every single cut of every scene and write down key code, flex code numbers, so the negative cutter would know where to cut the film. Okay. And all those reels of film that I had shot.
How much did the negative cutter cost?
Oh, that was expensive. I can't, between $6,000 and $8,000, I think. Oh. Somewhere around there. But I mean, the biggest cost was making prints, and the various prints that you have to make, like you shoot and there's an answer print, and then you might make an intermediate, but I couldn't afford the intermediate, so I had an answer print, and then
just straight off the negatives.
So then we would make copies, like the show prints from the answer print, and show prints were like $5,000 each, and that was the student rate. The answer print was more than that. You record sound optically, so sound is on a separate piece of tape that they marry afterward. They marry the sound and film together, and that's expensive. That's around $10,000 when they do that. Yeah, that's a separate lab. That's the final part of the process, because you're no longer cutting the film. When that happens, you can't, because it wouldn't match up afterward. But anyway, so we went through this whole process of making the film and finishing on film, and the plan was, in the books that I had read, was the traditional model, right? So I'd shot a Western, and my dream was to have it shown in theaters. Yeah. And that was the goal. We ended up doing a limited theatrical release that I basically orchestrated, sort of a self-release, 4-wall.
New York?
No, we did Houston, and had it in like Sacramento and Southern California. It was just a couple of theaters.
Was it worth it?
Yeah.
That was worth it. One print?
I had two.
Two prints. Okay.
One was damaged at one of the theaters in Stockton. Yeah, they didn't thread it properly.
I remember that. Yeah,
and it went right down the middle. They scratched the emulsion side right down the middle.
That's just a cost you absorb.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the manager said that they would replace the print, but they didn't, you know.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, that's just one of the many horror stories. We don't want to get into that quite yet. That would be a whole nother class. But yeah, so we finished on film. The plan was to do the traditional model. I did approach, you know, the question that you have to ask often is, do you hire for a filmmaker you've made your first film, do you hire a producer's rep to...
What's a producer's rep?
A producer's rep is like an agent for the filmmaker or the producer.
Mm-hmm.
So the producer's rep represents you with distributors, studios.
So they go and talk to the distributors and the studios and try and sell your film.
Yeah,
Try and trick them into
right.
buying the film,
Yes.
or into.
Yeah, they like, you know, they basically buy the rights to your film for a set period of time. So it's between 5 and 10 years.
So they give you money for the film, and then they try and make a profit off of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the thing there is, you know, with producers reps, the good ones have relationships with studios or distributors, generally with distributors, and they take a large percentage of the deal on up front.
Yeah.
So you're always, the question you ask is, well, is it worth it? And you up front, like right away, you don't know that they're going to be successful.
It's either that or do it yourself.
It's either that or do it yourself. And we
Sort of
had,
like working with an actor's agent.
yeah. And if you sign, they're usually a long-term deal, so you're locked into a deal with a producer's rep unless they give you an out. We were lucky because there was a producer's rep sort of was doing us a favor through one of our actors. She knew one of our actors and said, well, I have a couple of avenues I can try, and if that doesn't work, then it was in the contract that we could just nullify the contract. So that's
casual contract.
yeah, so that was a good thing.
How did you find the producer's rep?
Yeah.
That was actually through one of the actors,
Oh, okay.
because I was calling everybody I knew at that point for help, because I was contacting distributors,
Yeah.
and I had this distributors directory that was that used to be published anyway, and it had every distributor listed.
And you were cold calling?
I was cold calling, yeah.
And how'd that work out?
Actually, it worked out okay. I mean, I was getting, just through sheer persistence, I was getting people on the phone. I talked to the vice president of Touchstone.
Oh, wow.
And
Cool.
she was really nice.
Yeah.
And she, and I talked to the vice president of Fox
Wow.
Home Video.
Wow.
His name was John Scott, I believe. But everyone I spoke to, I talked to Robert Duvall's company, Butchers Run Films or something like that, and others, along with others. But everything you run into, like what I tell students is the first question they ask you, like even before budget, who's in your movie?
Yeah.
That's the first question any distributor asked me. After that, it was, what's the genre? And then what's your budget?
Interesting.
So, in that order, first, the cast was always first.
Yeah.
Who's in your film? And they would be like, they would get to budget, but it wasn't always the first thing. And so, generally speaking, they would say, well, it's a little small, the movie's considered a little small for us. Like it's we need, Touchstone was basically the comment. They only deal with movies with budgets of, I don't know, above $10 million or something like that. The gentleman at Fox was different. He asked to see the film, and I must have done a particularly good job on the phone that day, I don't know. But he did watch the film, and he called me back. He said he enjoyed the film, but he said that to call him back when I had a straight genre film. He said, I can sell westerns. He said, this isn't strictly a western, and it isn't strictly a drama. It's sort of a drama set in the West. He said, it's easy for me to sell a western, and it's easy for me to sell a drama, but it's hard for me to sell something in between, which was a lesson to me because I'd grown up liking movies that incorporated different genres, you know.
Yeah.
But Andy also said, and the cast, he said, I need bigger name actors, basically. He says, so call me when you have that.
Okay.
I said, okay.
Thank you.
But it was a good lesson, you know. And basically that was the comment. So when, you know, the guy at Robert Duvall's company said I needed to aim lower, I heard that a lot. You should aim lower. I heard that a few times. First it was with casting, and then it was with like selling the film. So then I started to contact smaller distributors, and then at a certain point people weren't as easy to get on the phone, so I kept getting assistants or second assistants who would say, yeah, well, he hasn't gotten to it yet, he'll watch it eventually. And you keep calling and they keep saying, you haven't had a chance to see it yet. So when that sort of dried up, you know, the first plan was the festival market. So, you know, I had read about all these films, like Aronofsky's film that showed at Sundance and Cannes. So you try to get into the top tier festivals. That's usually, in the traditional model, that's the way you do it. And to some extent, it still holds true. But if you don't get into the top tier festivals, then you're sort of aiming a little lower to second tier festivals. And you always hope that there will be somebody in the audience that will like your film with some connection to someone with clout. And we ended up showing the film at the Dallas International Film Festival. There's a pigeon, right? And there was an actor there that knew Buck and said, I know a distributor,
Cool.
a friend worked with the distributor, so that led to distribution, being at the festival.
They always say that, like, you know, Hollywood is not about, you know, what you can do, but who you know. It's all about who you know. And they say it like it's a bad thing. Like, I guess it could be a bad thing, but it's like, really it's a good thing, because it's like, you only want to work with friends. You only want to work with good people that you can trust. And so, here it comes. What's his name?
That's Shasta.
Hi, Shasta.
Hey, Shasta. He's curious.